On this episode of the Coaches Clinic podcast, brought to you by MaxEffortMuscle.com, we all have a topic, some great conversation, Mike.
Yeah, this was fun, and D hit me right away. He hit me
did.
right away, like I felt like he was been reading He's My Mind or something. He's got some space in there because he hit me with a really relevant topic that I think a lot of people will get out of as far as how you compete and then also how you learn to love the person you're competing with. So it was a really good one for me.
Treadway.
Yeah, I thought it was really good to just kind of hear where everyone's at and what they wanted to talk about. I definitely learned a lot from it, and there's not one topic, but there were 4 amazing topics.
Yeah, D.
Yeah, I think just being able to hear the different perspectives, from the high school coaching ranks to the college ranks to the grown men professional ranks. I mean, it's just really some unique takes on it. I think like any coach that listens to this is going to love what they come away with.
It just reconfirms why I love podcasting.
No doubt.
Because we could each individually have these conversations as we're all friends, but to have them together in a pinpointed way, how can people not get better from a conversation like this? I know I did. So let's roll to the show. Welcome to another episode of the Coaches Clinic podcast. I'm your boy Corey G, Mike Deegan, Tyler Treadway, Dustin Myers. What's up, fellas?
Good to be back. Good to be back.
Feels good to be back on the
That's
mic.
It.
I said I thought it'd be cool if we all had our own topics, because then we have no clue what each other's topic is, which I love. Dustin was like, "You want to know what my topic is?" I'm like, "Don't tell me." And I think like that creates good organic conversation, right? And the feedback we've been hearing has been great. So make sure you guys keep, giving us reviews and sharing it with your friends. But I've been getting some chirps. I know you've been seeing it. It's been cool. Treadway, you're getting chirps, right?
Absolutely.
Coaches just like showing love and just like I think the need for the content. So I'm excited to hear what you guys got today. Who wants to go first? D? Oh, let's go. Let's go, D.
Put me on the spot. I'm ready.
Let's go.
Put me in, coach.
You're ready. What's up?
All right, so now we always talk about this. We know how important competition is. So for your guys in the weight room, for your guys on the soccer field, and they go to school together all day, so they're around each other a lot. Same thing with your guys, Deegan. The competition that they have, in the on the practice field or whatever, is what's going to lead to greatness. But when you really think about it, how do you I want to hear kind of each one of you guys' perspective on this. How do you get these guys to compete with each other on an elite level day in and day out and not let it become personal when in reality it has to become personal at some point? Because, Deegan, you have 2 guys there. Only one of them can start on first base. Mm-hmm. So one of them is going to take away the dream of the other one. Mm-hmm. All right. So now how do you get them to compete, make each other better? One of them knowing now their dream's getting taken away by the guy that they're trying to help get better, and still be able to keep them moving forward and keep that going without it becoming too personal.
Coming right at me with
Yeah.
I'm firing right back at you.
Throwing it back at you.
But no, I think it, kind of the different dynamics between the college field, the grown man weight room, the high school dynamic. I want to hear you guys all take on this.
First off, that's great.
Well, I mean, this one is a really relevant topic for me as we record this because we're a couple
You're in
weeks,
the mix right now.
We're a couple weeks away from playing, so this is and I just had this conversation last night with our team because I feel like from the moment people step on campus until right now, it is a really good experience for everybody. But then it flips a little bit because results start getting on the line here, right? Like we're going to be on the internet.
Everyone comes in even.
Everyone comes in even. Everyone likes the training. Everyone likes. We know it's. But now we have decisions to make. We have 38 guys on a roster. Only 10 guys will appear in a lineup, 9 players, and then 1 pitcher as well. So there's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people sitting around.
So I could go on and on about this. I don't want to monopolize this conversation, but I do think a couple of things, and then I'll circle back to it. But one, I think really high performers, learn to love internal competition because we're striving together. Like I told our guys right from the beginning, if I don't give you my best effort, if I don't give you my best, then when we play an outside opponent, they are going to give you their best, right? So you're not going to be ready. So you learn to love the man across from you or the woman across from you or whatever. Like you're going to learn to love that person because they're making you better. I think average performers, they do hey, let's not go harder here on this drill together, right? Like you'll see it. I used to do in basketball. You go, all right, well, hey, we're doing defensive slides, but don't make me look bad. So you go pretty slow, I'll go pretty slow, right? Wrestling is really easy to do that too. Hey, let's just take it easy.
Yeah, the coaches always say there's certain guys on the team that hide during drills. They're over off to the side.
Yep.
They think that coaches can't see them when they're over there.
They're drilling 3/4.
Right.
They're drilling 3/4, and
the good guys stay in the middle of the mat where everyone can see.
That's right. And you For a while, like the average performers, they leave practice, they feel okay with that. But the elite ones, no, I'm not going to become my best with this type of atmosphere. So that's one. Two, then I'll stop and let everyone go and we'll circle back. But we have a phrase called mudita in our program. It's one of our 4 pillars. And mudita means vicarious joys. Can I be happy for another's success as if it's my own? And that's a central figure of our program. So we talk about it. We preach it. We are going to fight like crazy against each other. But then when we play an outside opponent, we've all got to be united. And I think when you play in a good program, a great program, the star rotates. Meaning, if I go to our run last year, we got to the regional final, 1 game away from the World Series. The stars during that run were a guy that didn't travel for the first 3 road trips, right? A pitcher who was probably like 9th or 10th on our depth chart, became the conference MVP. So my point is, if you can just stick with it and keep competing, like it's going to rotate. In average programs, maybe you have a star. You have the 3-hitter, you have a guy who scores a ton of points or whatever. But in great programs, you keep sticking with it long enough and keep competing, like you're going to get your shine eventually.
You'll get your time.
So Mudita, if you pour yourself into others, just keep you go out there and you celebrate someone else's success. I just think the world works this way. Like it'll come back to you in some way, shape, or form.
So you think that's something you really hammer into them, especially the kid who maybe came in, thought he was a high performer, but now he's second behind someone else. He's sitting, like, to keep him from not getting bitter, because now you still need him to perform. Number one, if you got to count on him in case the other guy goes down.
That's right.
And also to be able to push that guy that is ahead of him.
That's right. Those 2 things. Exactly. So one, they got to keep pushing the other one to get better, and 2, they got to be ready. And I can't tell you over my career how many this is such a relevant topic, so I appreciate this. So I'm kind of
no, please.
This is
I don't know that I can beat this answer.
Well, this is
he's my leadoff hitter right here.
Yeah. I'm thinking over here like, what am I about to say?
I know. It's therapy. It's therapy for me. But
yeah.
I can't tell you over the years. Like right now, you'll see the body language go down when we start putting the first lineups out there. So certain guys will. Bad body language, they'll get the poor pitiful me going, and I'm not minimizing it because it's hard, right? It's hard, so I don't blame them. But the ones who can get out of that quickly and start competing, like their time will come. And over the years, you see guys who have the bad body language, they do that type of thing, and then it's magical. What happens? Somehow somebody gets hurt, and we go, hey, Tread, you got to go in, baby. And you aren't ready, and you're not ready for that moment, right? And Tom Brady talked about that whenever Drew Bledsoe went down. He's like, I had the confidence of my teammates, my coaches, because they saw me prepare and prepare and prepare. And so when the $100 million guy goes down, and Tom Brady hasn't played yet,
people forgot he was a beast then too.
He was a
Drew was like an all-star.
They put $100 million on him at that time. That was the biggest contract in the NFL, saying like he's our guy for the next 10 years. So my point is, like, you'll see it every year. Guys sulk, and then it comes around, and you go, hey, man, this is your day. Go get them. And they're not ready. Other guys will be. So
yeah, will you address it like that? It's like, yo, this is how it's gonna feel. But you need to know it can't be personal. You can't be butthurt because the team needs you to prepare the same way. But that's hard. That's like a lot of maturity from these guys, though. That's tough.
It's so hard.
And they're used to being probably the best player on their team.
There is, and there's chirping back home, right? Like
of course.
My good friend John, we're going to get him on the podcast at some point. I think his superpower is his ability to keep guys just keep them together. But he'll say right away, when your parents call and they ask how practice is going, just tell them I'm working hard. Because if you say things like, hey, man, I was beasting on this guy today, like I'm better than so-and-so, and then you don't start, then all of a sudden you start making up lies. Like, well, what's going on? Like, why aren't you well, coach doesn't like me. Like, he yells at me. He's always picking on me. And that's really not the case. You're trying to save face, right?
Yeah.
So you right away, people just, if an athlete, you're listening to this and you're not getting your way, just say, hey, I'm working hard. I'm going to keep competing. Because if not, you start telling yourself stories. And like I said, you
start creating this narrative of like the people are holding you back.
Yeah.
When in reality, you're just not there yet.
Yeah, that's right. And I tell our guys, I'm like, look, fellas, I have got no vested interest in trying to start one person over the other here. Like,
This ain't high school.
None of you are you're not my family. Like we're trying to just win at the highest level we can. And we care about you, we love you, all that stuff. But you just got to keep going because, like you just said, you start telling this narrative like the world's against you. Like we know, like in other phases of our lives, how detrimental that can be, right? So you start playing that game, going, then people are like, wait, what they said, what to you? Like, anyway, so I've had guys at the end of the year who will say, hey, in March, this is in June, in March, you made this comment that really hurt me. And I'm like, man, like you hung on to that long? Like, cause that's the narrative going, right?
And
like,
I wondered if with kind of like today's, younger guys, like if it is more sensitive, because everything's more fucking sensitive. So I wonder if that's like a major, I mean, with something like this, because their feelings are hurt because of all these factors. And if they don't mature up, but part of that is your dialogue, right? The dialogue of the program is what cleans that up, I think, a ton. That's why Vanderwall's probably killing it.
That's why they're number 2 in the country and doing amazing things. But I think he's the master at that. He's the master at riding you hard in practice, walking out there with his arm around you, saying, hey, man, the game plan right now, but we're going to need you. I'm just telling you, we're going to need you. But it's up to the individual to take that and go with it. But this is so relevant because this is on the line for us right now. But I start, it's another Vanderwall quote, but he says, as a coach, you're your own PR firm. So you have to start kind of promoting things early. And so from the moment they step on campus, we start talking about this. Off season's time to be selfish, but right now we got to be kind of pulling together as a one unit. And the definition of humility is realizing that it's not about you. Like, it's not about you. And if you can do that, once again, that's tough, 18 to 22-year-olds in my case. But, man, it's everything. So, yeah, you can tell probably the passion in my voice how important this is, because you have to be pulling the rope. As soon as you get people going like this against each other, it's over.
I'll answer personally. As an athlete in high school, I was a 6 man my entire
I was
varsity
literally
career.
just thinking
and
about
I
this.
fucking hated every second of it. But I worked and prepared because we did have a guy go down or a guy got ineligible, and I got the start. And I was in a lot of key moments, and I created narratives that I won't share. But I was like, this guy's getting this because of that. And that was really difficult for me because I know you guys know how I work. I was working the same in that. Right. My jumper just wasn't as fresh. But
hey, I'm going to go on record and say the kind of consensus in the school was you should have been a starter.
Yeah, especially my senior year too. It was frustrating, but I kept preparing and working like that. So when the opportunity was there, I would have a chance, and I did. But it was just one of those things where that was like a really challenging. But I've probably worked and operated that way this entire time, partly because of that. I've always like the underdog behind the 8 ball, that type of. I just took on that mentality, which has obviously paid dividends in just my life.
You know what? Like what Dee just said there, like that's what happens. But the whole school also is telling you that, right? Like it can start, because your buddies.
All your homies are like, I know you should be in, but that's like. And you don't, this is pre-social media. This is all that, right? This is like the 90s.
That's right.
But I still think that has never really like left me. And I've always kind of shielded stuff like that. Like I like being that guy because I know what I'm willing to do. So, but a lot of people don't take it that way. That's the hard part.
If you watch Man in the Arena, have you guys had a chance to check that at all? I haven't seen it yet. You have to. It's a master's class on elite level mindset. But it's the Tom Brady stuff, and a lot of his peers say, okay, how did he last that long? It's because he knew how he got his job. Like he knew he got his job by a franchise quarterback going down, and he never came out.
He knew he could be that guy.
He knew he could be that guy, just like you knew you could be the 6th man again, right?
Yes.
Or so like if you take those lessons and bottle them up, that was my message to our guys last night, and that's why it's just so fresh with me. I said, hey, if you pour yourself into the team, you pour yourself into the program, I can guarantee you're going to get rewards. It won't be on your time. It won't be exactly what you envisioned, but you'll be able to take something out of this if you pour yourself into it. Yeah. But if you listen to that group of gripers, and they'll always be there in any walk of life. There'll always be someone saying, hey, man, like, why are you guys doing this at Max? Like, what are you doing? You could be doing this or this.
Yeah,
like, there's always going to be that. So you can go with that crowd, and it's going to feel good and comfortable to hear your homies say, hey, you should be starting. Like, you can do that, or you can go to practice the next day and just keep busting it and busting it and busting it.
I'm not starting for a reason.
That's
that's the reality. And once again, especially when you're out of the high school dynamic, you have no invested interest on this kid or that. You are looking at it as a completely biased, and most coaches are, but really because they're not from the same area. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's no extra side thing going on.
To me, it's like when you start going, as a coach, if you start going down that route of saying, hey, man, like I really like Trent, I want to get him out there, that gets really dangerous because I like them all, So it really has to be about performance. And so I guess I'm a little off topic, but I think that competition, internal competition, I think if you're going to perform at the highest level, Ohio State wrestling, the wrestling room has got to be good in practice, right? Like, or am I wrong there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll give you guys an example just from this past weekend. So, Ohio State, they're ranked maybe 6th or 7th in the country right now. One of our main guys, senior Caleb Romero, max effort athlete, one of my guys.
Shout out.
Shout out to Caleb. So Caleb, he's a little bit dinged up, has to sit out the Rutgers duel. Now he's ranked like number 5 in the country or whatever. Well, he moved up this year to 184. Now last year our starter at 184 was Rocky Jordan. Now you guys are familiar with Bo Jordan, 4-time All-American. That's his older brother. Micah Jordan, his other older brother. So he comes from a wrestling dynasty. I mean, Bo Jordan's the assistant coach now.
Literally a dynasty.
Now Rocky is good, but he's like a top 15, maybe top 20 guy last year. Caleb's a top 5 guy. Well, when Caleb decided to bump up, I don't even know if they had them wrestle off. I think it was just kind of like Caleb bumped up and took his spot. So Rocky Jordan, coming from the Jordan family, is on the bench this year. Now, it would be easy to be in that situation and kind of sulk, right? Well, I'm assuming Rocky just had his head down, worked, prepared. Well, guess what? He gets in as a starter in the Rutgers match. He has the number 6 guy in the country from Rutgers. What does Rocky do? Goes out there and guts out a 1-point victory. Huge upset. Probably, honestly, the biggest upset or the biggest win he's ever had, even when he was a starter.
Yeah.
He never beat a top 5 guy. You know what I mean? So
that shows that he'd been working like that.
He'd been working,
yeah.
and when his number got called,
Good for him.
he was prepared. Yeah, I was super happy for him.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure his family was elated because of the expectation of like being a top guy, and then he got to like experience it. That's pretty.
Yeah.
sick.
Now this week, I mean, Caleb might be back. Rocky might be back on the reserve list. But when he was called to step up, he had a huge win. Like I said, probably even a bigger win than he had when he was a starter last year.
Isn't it weird that this is what you can see? That's the stuff that gives me chills. Like
For sure.
Those are the moments. The one who had like the road's been paved for him, and they're super elite. Like that's cool too. I'm not minimizing those people, but those are the stories that you hold on to. The guy that gets a pinch hit in the regional final and hits a home run, and he has just been working and grinding. Like those, as a coach, those are the people you really hold near and dear to your heart. So
sure,
I just anyone who's in that situation right now, I would say just keep plugging because people are going to admire the heck out of you way more than they'll admire anybody else. Like that's a phenomenal story. So thanks.
Yeah. So I want to hear now kind of Treadway's take on it because now you're dealing with kids that maybe they've known each other their whole lives.
Yeah.
Their parents might be friends or they go to church together. The community is much different in a high school environment. You kind of talked about the dynamics there of
the boosters.
The boosters are involved.
The
everything.
Status, all that shit.
And so these kids, like, if now someone's beating me for my spot on the team, I can't like not see him until practice the next day. I probably see him on the bus, see him in the lunchroom.
Yeah, class.
Yeah, maybe he stole my girlfriend last year. Whatever. So.
Yeah, well, I think the advantage that I have is having a junior varsity team. So, like, if a player is not performing and they don't make the first team, like Coach Deegan, you don't have a JV team. So you can't just say, just if you perform well there, then we'll move you up. And then vice versa, if the player is on varsity and not performing well, we'll send them down. But the thing that I think that has been to our advantage is just being honest with the kids and never – I feel like a lot of coaches will sugarcoat things. So, like, if I have a kid that's not performing well and he's, like, kind of getting a little bit of spite towards another player, I'll just sit him down and be like, look, man, here's why you're not playing. Like, it has nothing to do with that kid and you battling each other. It has everything to do with that kid's working that much harder than you are. And this is where you're at. And it's really tough for these kids to hear because a lot of times their parents are in their ear. They're like, kind of what Deegan said, like, what's going on in practice? I was the best player at practice. And every kid in high school thinks they're the best player at practice.
No, you weren't.
and so I think that you have to have an honest conversation with, last year was my first year at Watkins, my new school. And we had a lot of kids that just didn't get to play, and their parents would come up to me, and this is where I messed up, right? So their parents would come up to me and be like, yo, my kid's a stud. They're not playing. Why? And I'm like, your kid is good, but there's somebody that works a little bit harder than your kid. But that's really tough to tell a parent, and it's really tough to tell a kid. But having those honest conversations will, for the most part, squash a lot of that.
What if they aren't working harder, but they're just straight up better?
Then I still don't reward
because that happens.
I've had to tell parents of, like, say my high school wrestlers, when they'll ask, I'll say he needs to learn to focus and work harder. I mean, I have no problem telling a parent that. I'll say, yeah, of course he has he has potential, but until he can learn to focus and really like dial into what we're doing, he's holding himself back.
Yeah,
I think you have to be able to tell parents that.
And we had an issue where we had a kid that was more skilled than a starter. But his attitude was really bad. And the parent came up to me and they're like, hey, he's better. And I was like, yeah, you're right. But but your kid's not putting forth the effort. Like when Coach Deegan used a word that I don't understand. That's one of their core words.
I never heard that word before either.
They pour into everything. This kid pours everything into himself, right? So he wasn't putting anything into the team. So it's like, well, why would I play you just because you're good at your position when you're not pouring anything else into the team? And that, again, those are difficult conversations to have, and nobody wants to have them. But I think that there's a lot of value in being honest and open with them and telling them, like, because then that kind of starts to let them understand where they lie and what they can do to create that position. Because we never want to just ostracize a kid and let them just sit on the sideline and think like, oh, I'm better than this kid, I shouldn't be starting, because then they start to get upset, and then it just, it creates a negative feedback loop where everything just starts to turn downhill. So being honest with them and saying, hey, yeah, you might be better, but this is why you're not starting, and just having like open and honest conversations is kind of
so. Do you think maybe kind of taking it away from like a, hey, it's not a you versus them type of thing. It's their effort, their attitude, your effort, your attitude. Like they're in two separate silos versus like you versus them, and basically which one is more impressive or more consistent.
It's always two battles with a kid that doesn't play. It's them versus the player, and it's them versus the coach. And they always, high school is weird because they always have their parents in their corner, which they should, but their parents are always like, oh, you're better than this player. And a game will end and we'll lose, and they'll be like, well, that player played terribly, but you're better than them. You should be playing over them. And, I
so glad I ain't got to deal with that.
there's a lot of politics to it.
Hell yeah.
And so as an assistant coach, I'll flip that and I'll make it them battle me. Yeah. Right, so it pulls pressure off the head coach. It pulls pressure off, instead of them saying when they walk by each other in the hallway, they're pissed at each other and they don't want to talk to each other. So that way it squashes that, and they can still gel as teammates. And I'll put it as like them challenging me.
Well, also Trey, what you said, it's them versus you or coach, them versus the other player. But if you can make them understand, it's really them versus them.
Right. Yeah. And so that's
through that communication.
Yeah. So I'll put it against me, and I'll be like, look, these are the standards that I hold, and this is why you're not meeting them. Mm-hmm. So you need to change my mind. It's not about the head coach who's set in the lineup. It's not about the player who's in your spot. You need to meet my criteria, and I'll be the one that kind of lays it out to them why they're not playing, and then they can challenge it. And then they usually will see it's me versus me and not me versus everybody else.
Yeah. That's really important, I think. I'll bring up my topic. I was really thinking about the leadership component. I think everyone talks about leadership culture, all this stuff, but then also understanding that the leader's not always the best athlete, which we've all talked about before, right? And then what happens if they're an underclassman and you're seeing it real young, and they're a better leader than the freshman's a better leader than the senior? Or maybe they're not even a starter. I think there's a lot of, but they're like dead on. The one. That's who everybody should be listening to. Mm-hmm. It's like, how do you cultivate a potential underclassman that also might not be the star athlete? It's an easy one when they're already a starter on varsity. They're vocal, like they have all the components. But I don't know that that's real obvious all the time, right? But it's like if you recognize that there's a leader in your group, and that it's not in the normal hierarchy, how then do you kind of, like cultivate that? Because that's what's going to make your group better, whether it's in your lifting group, on the mat, in your locker room. I think because that's an interesting dynamic, because maybe the starter at first base might be the one everybody thinks they should be listening to, but is really not the right personality for it. So I don't know if you guys have ever encountered that, but do you look like you're ready to talk?
Yeah, well, no, I'm getting my thoughts together, but... Yeah, so I think like it's one thing when it's an underclassman, when it's okay. So it's Nathan Tomasello, and he comes in, and he's a freshman. Everyone
great
knows.
Example.
Yeah, so
fucking stud.
Yeah, so when we had guys like that, that class, it was, Tomasello, Bo, Kyle Snyder came in. They were all three, as freshmen were team captains. So those are obvious choices because they're going to be great. But I think kind of what you're saying is, how do you do that when you see it's someone that's a leader but is maybe not. They're not a Nathan Tomasello. Yeah. They're not a surefire national champion.
But they're going to make the team better if they are in that leadership role.
Yeah, so I think someone like that, you can't just automatically say like, all right, I'm going to make Clay Reeves the team captain.
Yep.
Even if he has team captain ability and work ethic. But I think maybe those are the type, when you have an athlete like that, those are the ones you start kind of winding them into little responsibility roles here and there. So even if they're not on paper, they're not the team captain, but it's you kind of put some importance and like hold them up as an example of effort sometimes, but do it gradually. So it's not just like, okay, who is this kid and why is he all of a sudden the example, you know? And then I think people will start to, the other athletes will start to kind of figure out like, okay, there's a reason why this guy is now getting to maybe, you know, gets to lead the run today, or,
there you go, yeah.
you know, this type of thing. You know, they'll start to catch on.
It's
like,
those
all right,
subtle, gradual moves.
correct. Yeah, I think you have to do it subtly when it's not like the star athlete, so to speak.
Yeah. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah. So what I would go to is I think it starts with being really clear in what you value as an organization, like your values, and making those things crystal clear. And then, like for us, we have a leadership committee. A lot of people have that, but we take representatives from each class: freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors. Okay. So they're in the room, but and we have a vote. We have a vote, and guys will speak. But I think it starts with really knowing your values and singing those values loud, because then everyone else can see around, you know, who possesses those things. So for us, you know, on that leadership committee I'm thinking of right now, I mean, there's several guys that aren't frontline players, but they embody who we're trying to become. So. And I think Dee scratched on it a touch, and I'll just drive it home. I think we really try to celebrate those behaviors that those people that they those behaviors that exhibit our values. So it doesn't matter who they come from, right? So that's where I'm leading. The guy who hits the ball really hard or throws the ball really hard, like that's okay. Like they're doing their thing, and that's cool. But where I spend a lot of my time is saying, hey, you know, Treadway, you see what he did? He's working hard. He did a chart all game, doubleheader today, never played an inning, but he kept an immaculate chart. He helped us win today. Like that's who I want to celebrate. So I think you look for moments to call those people out and be an encourager for them. So that, to me, those people are what make your program go so well. If you're going to tie those two things together, what we just talked about first, hey, I don't get to start, but now you show those people how by not starting, you still add value to the program. Like those are the leaders of your team. So anyways, I think it's just calling out and celebrating behaviors that you really admire and want other people to embody.
Yeah, so we're dealing with this right now. We're trying to, you know, we're in the off season. We're trying to figure out who's going to be our captains for next year because we're starting to get into some stuff. And I stole something from this podcast that I learned from Dustin with what Ohio State does with the black shirts. And so what we did was we took a group of – we're having exit meetings. Every kid, we say, hey, who do you want in your corner? Like when shit hits the fan, who do you want? And we had like 7 answers, but we only have 2 captains. So basically what we did was we eliminated ones that we didn't think that would fit that narrative. So then we came up with 4 kids who 2 of them, based on talent alone, should be the captain, but maybe leadership-wise, they don't represent what we want them to. And then the other 2, one of them will fight to have time on the field, but they're a tremendous leader, and then the other one is a great leader, but he'll play a lot. So we said, hey, you 4 are going to be the guys that we select to wear the shirt, wear the black shirt. And so we said, this is why, right? This is what you can learn from him. This is what you can learn from him, and explained why they each have different traits that we felt embody the program, and maybe they can take something from that. And then when Gaiden Day comes, we're only going to have 2 speaking captains, and it's going to rotate. And we'll say, you know, if you're representing everything that we want in practice and training, and you're uplifting, like our 2 best players are kind of jerks. Right, but in a good way.
You're gonna need a call from their parents after this episode drops.
That's fine, they know it.
But you're gonna need a call from every one of the parents because they're gonna think, well, he had to be talking about my kid because they're the best player.
Yeah,
exactly.
But they maybe don't present that the best one. Like, it's the right energy, but it's not always funneled in the right direction. And sometimes the younger kids get scared by that. And I had a conversation with one of the players. I said, he was like, yeah, I'm a dick. And I was like, yeah, you are, and that's why I love you, because you don't sugarcoat anything. You know, sometimes you have a captain that's like, oh, man, you did great, when really they need to be told, like, this is what you need to do. This is why you weren't good enough. And so trying to get them to funnel that in the right direction. So then when we look for a captain, we're looking for, hey, this is what the 4 of you embody. Which 2 embody that the best? Like, were you up to standard? And that makes them take a look at themselves and push them to a higher standard, because they're like, well, I want to be one of the speaking captains on game day, so I'm going to do everything that these guys have in myself so that I can earn that right.
Well, I think even in the mornings too, like the consistency of like guys showing up, guys helping out, you know, going to help at meets, showing up, like maybe even like throwing like some stuff at me on the programming, like, yo, G, let's try, like trying to make the process better and trying to make the team better, trying to lead. Like Jake Holland's a great one because he just doesn't freaking miss.
Unbelievable guy.
Jake is battling for some really like strong levels, like squat and deadlift now too. You know what I mean? At 6'7", but it's like that consistency is made of what was a, pretty solid, I think, college basketball player into now is going to have some pretty reputable freaking numbers, which every time we go to the meets, they're like, the squat rack doesn't go high enough. You know what I mean? Like the things that he's able to do, people are like, damn, that's a long way to go. Like it just, that's not really normal for a guy that's built like Jake, but he wants it so bad that he moved here and he shows up every day, except for yesterday. I had to text him because he slept in or whatever, but he still came. But the reality is, like, what I've seen from him, he automatically became a leader through not even really talking about it, just by showing it. And so it's like, yeah, he's not the strongest dude in the group, not even close. But it doesn't matter because he knows he's not going to miss tomorrow or the next day. And I think that the guys that are top end strength that can be here all the time, they see it, whether they want to know it or not, they know it. You know what I mean? And so I think it sets he's a good example of just somebody that's like became a leader in a couple of years, purely on consistency.
He's such a great example for that.
He's a great example for it.
I mean, because it just my limited times come to that group. To me, he's a leader in that place.
Of course he is.
He's the first. He's usually the first one there when I would get here.
I know he's going to be here.
He's so helpful. He's getting things set up. Like and he'll tell me like from a place of humility. He's like, I'm going to get on that board. They have a board that has all the top weights, and he's probably not close to that right now of being that. But he goes, I'm going to get there.
Yep.
And if you can't admire that, like if you're someone who can do those weights, and you see him, I mean. Yeah, there's something.
But eventually you might be not able to do those weights.
That's right.
Because you're not willing to put in what Jake is. And that's what I've been trying to do all these years. I'm just outlasting motherfuckers.
He'll outlast. I think one other little quick thing just kind of off that and just in general, I would caution coaches to the default is usually to go to your best player. That's usually your default.
That was kind of my point of the topic.
Yeah, and if you praise that person so much, there's always going to be a little bit of unspoken – I don't know. Like there's people in that locker room going, "Hey, like you're saying this about G&G, how great he is, but I'm telling you, he doesn't work that hard. He doesn't embody anything we're trying to do." Like that, I think your credibility really goes down when you put someone on a pedestal because of their ability. And it's hard as a coach not to fall in love with some of those things but I do think your credibility really gets shot when you do that because a lot of times you're standing in front of the group saying, "Hey, why don't you be more like Tyler? He's doing this or that," and then the people are kind of rolling their eyes going, he don't do that.
Yeah.
He drank 30 beers last week at a party. Like, that he doesn't embody what you say, coach. And now your credibility is shot because that really ruins things. So, anyways.
That's good. Trevor?
Yeah, so I want to talk about expectations and how you manage them. So, for those of you listening, Coach Deegan's team was just named by D3Baseball.com top 25 program in the country, number 21. Dustin, you were a strength coach for one of, if not the best, college wrestling program in the world, and G just went and squatted a world record.
No big deal.
Hey, our cast is strong out here. Dustin's about to be the honorary coach this weekend.
Right.
I
am serving as the honorary coach this weekend. Yeah, for senior day.
It's
We have
really dope.
Indiana.
Yeah,
So cool.
Yeah, we're repping a little, some.
We got
stuff out
we
here.
got a strong coaching
squad.
But all of those come with expectations and how you manage them. And I think all of you are high-level performers. So when the expectation is X, you exceed that because of what you've done and the work that you put in. But how do you manage that? Because there's a lot of people that have high expectations. I mean, how many number one draft picks in whatever league just don't pan out, but they've always been the best player. So they just ride that, and then they become the number one pick, and then it's like, oh, now I actually have to work for this. And then they just, they crumble.
I just had this conversation with Mike when we walked in because I brought that up, and he goes right to a humility, like an answer of like, oh yeah, but he gives me like 3 answers of why he don't want to be like buying in his own hype, which is my answer, right? Initially, because when people came up to me about that, I knew I was capable of doing that. I had to go and execute it, but I wasn't like that surprised, right? Now, the moment to go and squat the weight and hit the prep and make the body weight, all of these factors had to line up. But the capabilities, I sent it to you guys 2 weeks ago. So I'm gonna go snipe this. You know what I mean? And so it's like I think it's a confidence, but also I'll come back with some type of like, man, I just really appreciate it. Like, I'm just blessed to even get a chance to try it. Like, just to get mentioned that's how our program, that's our level now. Even if you don't think it's right, or you do think it's right, you know what I mean? Like, I think that there's, if you're going right back with, I think confident answers are good too, but the reality is to keep it like grounded. I think it has to be more of a humility answer, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think when I think of expectations, for a program, for a college program, for you, what you're gonna do personally, for your program, whatever, I always think of like the iceberg analogy, right? So where do these expectations come from? It's that tip of the iceberg that everyone sees above the ocean, all right? But really, that has to be supported by this huge base underneath, and that's your culture, your work ethic, and everything. So any team or any lifter or whatever you can have like a flash in the pan talent that comes out of nowhere. But if the Big Ten rings I wanted or helped contributed to win at Ohio State were based on just we had some really talented guys that year, then the expectation can be set too high because there's not that base of support underneath that are going to bring along the next athletes that come along. So I think you have to really create there's these buzzwords again, the culture and the work ethic. So then that way, once maybe those once in a generation talents that you do have that come through, when they're not there the next year or 5 years later, the other guys that come along are still going to get brought up to that same level that you still are going to kind of peak above of the waves, and people be able to see that iceberg.
No doubt. I'll just kind of go off that a touch. For me, like I'm gonna give another buzzword here, right? But we really believe in Kaizen, that phrase of continuous and never-ending improvement. And so
we're gonna have to make sure Kyle gets these because I want to look these words up.
Yeah. It's but yeah, that for me. So like, it doesn't matter. Like the year prior to our arrival, they were 12 and 27 or something, or where we are now. It almost doesn't matter to me. Like I'm not just saying that. Like it's just we're just trying to get better. That's all. We're just trying to get better. We're trying to be better today than we were yesterday, et cetera, et cetera. So the rankings and things are good for recruiting. They're good to put on social media, and those things add value. So I'm not minimizing that.
Looks good on Instagram,
it looks
Coach.
Good. It shows up well, but for us, we're just trying to get better. And so that's it. So I don't really feel it. I don't feel expectations. I don't feel any of that. I know our guys, they don't either. I mean, we talk a lot about being really humble in preparation, right? So, and I know we've talked about this at length in other ways, but really humble there, knowing that we haven't earned one win this year, that there's every other program in the country's working hard, trying to be good, and so are we. But then we're going to be, arrogant or really confident when we perform. So right now we're in humility phase, right? Just trying to get better. And then when we go perform, hopefully we've earned it because of below the iceberg. We've been working so hard that we can go out there and perform and shine. But expectations are good, man. There's a privilege of having pressure of high expectations, and I think that's where we are.
Well, and I think that's necessary to get a chance to be great, right? You put all this prep in a humble way, and then on that day, it's okay to have that edge. It's okay to believe in yourself like that you are the best maybe lifter in that weight class. Like, so my expectation of our group is to go snag first in every division. Because I'm not surprised when that happens.
Because you've worked at it, right?
Yeah, and
that expectation comes from the work you guys have put in.
The base, which is what you said earlier. It's that foundation. We've already been putting it in for all these years, all in the mornings, and it's more intense here on Wednesday than it is at the meet.
That's right.
So, we're preparing our guys. We have to hype the meets up because that's what we're used to.
Right.
That's why you see us hooting and hollering. We just act like we're in the gym here. And then we're getting a result. And so when these guys are blowing through 30, 40, 50-pound PRs, taking records, whatever, I'm not surprised in the least bit. There might be other people surprised, and that's okay because, like I've said a lot of times, when the system and the environment is like it is, and especially even more so now since we moved, it's not just one person. It's different when it's one person. When it's 7, 8, 10 people, and then the baseline of somebody's really good day is now their worst day. And then the opportunity when we have the super compensation and we're rested and we're ready to rock on meet day is at elite level, like multiple elite level lifters, multiple stuff that people go shaking their head like, damn, that is the expectation now. But it took us a long time to cultivate that, years and years and years. So we don't even talk about the expectation. It's already set now.
Would it be? Let me just kind of paraphrase that.
Yeah.
Is it if you didn't put the work in at 4 a.m., if you didn't go hard every day, then you may feel those expectations.
Yeah, because we'd be guessing if
you're
we're going to do that.
And you're faking then, right? Like,
Yeah.
so as long as you aren't faking, right? Like, I know what we're doing as a program. We're working hard. That doesn't mean we're not guaranteed success, but we're doing the right things. So the expectations really don't bother.
But when you go to the regionals, you're not surprised.
No, we're not surprised.
Yeah.
But the same deal for you. Like if we weren't working hard, if we knew there were a bunch of holes in our game right now,
of course.
then I'd be going, man, like we're.
Yeah.
But not for now. It's like, oh, it is what it is.
I think that's why the guys are at ease.
Yeah.
You see a lot of meets, people go, especially the first one, squat. There's a lot of dudes that are scared to squat in front of people, scared to miss this stuff. The comfort level of our crew is like completely different.
Hey, D, I can't remember. There's a guy here that you train with. I apologize, I don't know his name, but he does some fighting, some MMA stuff, and he talks about the void. Were you there when he was talking to us about the void one day? You were there. He said, when you go into a fight, you got to be able to look into that.
Was it Ian, the tall kid with the blonde hair?
Yeah. Do you remember that story?
I vaguely remember. Yeah, refresh me on it.
So it was kind of off what you were saying. He said, when you go into a fight, I was like, man, you got to talk to me about when you walk into a ring. Like you're going in there to fight. Like, what's that like? And he's like, I had a trainer tell me that I've got to put all the work in. And if I miss anything, if I cheat on my diet, if I miss workouts, if I don't train well, then I look into that void and I see all those things. And I don't have a chance in that fight. But if I look into that void and I don't see anything, meaning I've put the time and I've worked.
He's prepared.
He's prepared. Anyway, so you guys.
That's what I felt like a couple days ago.
Yeah. So, but to me, I butcher that story, but I tell it to our guys. It's the same deal that if you do all those right things, you're good. And you're the only one who really knows it. Like, you know what I mean? Like going back to parents or fans or whatever, they can hype you up. But if you look into that thing and go, man, like I've been sloppy in my workouts, I've been sloppy in my training.
Well, there's an anxiety that comes from knowing that you didn't do what you were supposed to do, or that you could have done more.
That's right.
And there's a
You
calmness.
can't dodge that either.
Right, you can't. So there's a calmness that comes from knowing that you did everything you could. Because if you did everything you could, then there's nothing else to worry about. You can't worry about, oh man, if I was just in a little better shape, or if I would have studied more film, or whatever it is.
It just is what it is at that point, right? And then it was like one of our guests said, then, I may not be able to run a 145 800, but I can run a 146. And if you don't run
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But if you,
no.
same deal, like, okay, like you may be a better fighter than me, but I'm trained up now.
If you slip,
I can,
Buster Douglas.
But there's I think there's such a piece. I think there's such a piece with that of going in knowing I look into that void and I don't see anything. That's when I hear you guys talk about that Saturday. It's like, hey, like we killed it. We worked out hard. We trained up, and then now let's just see what happens. And if I fail, I fail. Yeah. It's not even really failure at that point, right? It's just, hey, I got to go back and learn a little bit.
Just another rep, man.
That's it. But yeah,
I don't know why this popped into my head. But I remember your stepdad, Randy, talking to us back when we were in high school. And we were asking him something about, he was telling us a story about like bar fighting or something when he was a teenager. And about how he wasn't scared to bar fight anyone. And I might ask him like, why, were you the toughest guy in Hopedale or something? He said, no, I wasn't the toughest guy. But I would wait until they'd get tired. And I would tell them when we were fighting, don't get tired.
Yeah.
Because once you get tired, I'm going to get you.
His whole mentality is you better pack a lunch because I'm not going to run out of gas. And he's like the nicest, non-confrontational guy, but he was confident in how strong he was. He's a little bit smaller dude, so he always worked out. And he's like,
he knew he wasn't going to give up.
He knew he wasn't going to give up. That's so funny because you'd never, like Randy's personalities, but in the mine or, working around some of these rough dudes over the years, he's been tested, and that's what always been his mentality.
Yes. So he's the one guy, sometimes you start and try to hope people jump in and break it up.
Yeah, no. He's got to let everybody wear out.
Yeah. Get away from me.
But I'll tell you one thing, too, that piece that you just mentioned, I experienced this weekend, and I told Mike when I walked in, I said, I walked into that meet knowing that I was capable potentially of doing that because I'd put the work in. And then when I was looking in, there was nothing looking back at me. It was there, right? 100%. So I walk in, I don't tell my wife, I just turn my phone off. And just go, I'm here to do something today, right? I'm locked in, I'm just staring at the damn wall. I'm not even really conversating, like whatever. I'm really about it. And whenever I'm very technical on my first two squats, I opened up. First of all, I weighed 181 pounds. I'm in the 40 to 44-year-old division. For you guys, there's like age groups too. I squat 550 as my opener, smoke show. I squat 611 as my second, a little bit slower, but still really good. And Todd, shout out Todd Dunkel, Hall of Fame coach, Columbus Academy High School, comes over to me. He goes, it's time to bring it like you do on Wednesdays now. He's like, this one, he's like, these other ones, they're crispy. Like, he knows, my technique and stuff. He's like, live up to the stereotype, G. He's like, that's what he said to me. He goes, I know I see it every Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, we need to bring that here on this one. And I was like, all right, Todd. Like, you know what I mean? And he said, yeah, he said it just like that because he's been my longest standing training partner since Dustin.
Yeah.
Right? Since high school. Like, Todd's been here like every morning basically for like 8 years.
Yeah.
When we trained at 7, then it went to 6 and 4, now, 3, whatever, 4. So I get that from Todd. And I get Cole telling me, like, he's going to give me the best freaking rap. Like, basically, he's, so you got this support.
Speaking greatness,
Oh, yeah, all the time. And so, like, when I'm set up for it, Tyler comes over and he's like, what's the number you want? And I'm like, well, it's 655, so I need to be over that. And he's like, well, it's a kilo. So he's like, there's a 655.9. And I'm like, all right, cool, give me that. And then Cole's wrapping my knees. He's all fired up. I'm like, give it all to me, Cole. I want. And so I'm talking shit to Cole, like he's like doing like a row as he's wrapping my knees. He's like, yeah, like this, right? Cole's all hype anyway, right? So he's all fired up, and we're getting everything. And I go up there, I hit the nose torque, and I'm all pumped. And then I walk up to the bar, and then everything slows down because then I know it's all technique. It has nothing. I know 1,000,000% in my mind I'm strong enough to do this, that I can get a record. And I used to be the guy that always said, well, I'm not going to break any records, but I'm the guy working hard. Well, this day I'm coming to break the record, right? And that's one of the first time I've got to experience that. And so what I didn't anticipate is now the way the powerlifting meet's set up is you got the monolift, which is your squat rack, and then there's like a whole rows of people sitting down and stuff like that are there watching their family, whatever. So I get up under the bar and I look up and everybody's standing up. They got their phones out. All the homies are from the back. Like, it's literally the moment that this is what I live for. And this is me. I fucking love this stuff. So I try to like tell my mind, all right, G, all you got to do, it's all technique sound. That's it. The strength is there. All of this just feeds it. So when I get up under the bar, and now obviously it's 655 pounds, I go to like push up on it and it doesn't really move because it's in the wrong spot. So instead of getting caught up in the moment, I realize that's not it, right? So I reset, I take another deep breath, and everyone gets quiet because I don't move it the first time off the rack.
That's right.
So then I get in the right spot and I get it up, and then it's like just listening, and it rolled a little bit. Now, for you guys who don't know, like when the bar rolls a little bit with that much weight, you can't get out of line. You're done, basically. It's going to miss. So I'm given every reason for these judges not to turn down this record because I want it so bad. And so I wait. I take my time. I'm going down. Tyler Galbraith did an amazing job on my cues. He's giving me the 3, 2, so I know how low I am. And then when he says sit back when he's at 2, because I was sitting a little forward, so he gives me a great cue. He says 1, and then after he says go, I go a little deeper just to make sure they can't rob me of it. And then I come out of there like Todd said, on the gas, right? Get all the way up. And then I'm just waiting for them to like bring it back in. And then I in my mind, as it started moving, I was like, you're about to really fucking do this right now. Like that's literally what it said. Like, yeah. So it was like, and once again, it's like I was almost in disbelief of myself, but I was so present and conscious in that moment that everything had slowed down, literally slowed down. And then once it racked, it was melee. And it was definitely one of my best like lifting moments ever as an athlete. So it was really exciting. So I wanted to paint a picture for you guys.
That was good. Isn't it crazy though? Sometimes when you're so dialed in and present in a moment, you're almost outside of the moment at the same time.
I was outside the moment.
Yeah,
1,000,000%.
You're in it and outside of it.
It. And you hear the athletes talking about that stuff, how it slows down, how it's this. And I didn't allow myself to get caught up in. Now, once it was racked, I was hype, yelling, acting maniac, which is also just me in general every Wednesday. But that was like, and as a leader, man, to be able to go there and do what I said I was going to do felt really good. And the other thing is, I didn't rush it because I was like, gee, you don't even know if you're ever going to get a chance to do this again. So all of these things are happening, but fast and slow. It's really hard to explain. But anyway, I just thought, I want people to know, like, as a coach, I'm, still an athlete, and I got to experience something I wasn't sure maybe I was going to get a chance to later in life.
There's so many things there. I mean, one,
I wanted you to hear the picture painted too.
Yeah. You know what I also think about too? On the outside looking in, that's an individual record.
Yeah.
Right. But what you just laid out there was, if you kind of hit the rewind button, 4 a.m. crew, Jake,
Yeah.
being here every day, right?
I know Jake's going to be here. I got to be here.
All those things, right? All those
Yeah.
guys, and they're there. There's a rap that took place that had to be right.
Yep.
There was Tyler that had to give you the cues. To
Cole
do
will tell you he went there that day to make sure I had the best rap.
That's right.
He was there
to dominate his current role. His
Yeah.
job that day is to rap you
And hype me up.
To hype you up. Todd Dunkel to have the moment to be able to have earned the right to be able to speak greatness into you, that you knew that it wasn't
I knew
BS.
exactly what he meant.
And that's a real one. Like that's so. Anyways, like you see the one moment of a squad that works.
Yeah.
But all those things that took place and that would, I think we're probably close out of time, but that would lead to my next question, the importance of building relationships in coaching. But I'm amazed by that story because so many things happened.
That had to happen right.
That had to happen right. And so many people were a part of that. And so when you hear athletes say, people don't understand, like, I want to thank my wife, all these people that have done, sometimes you think it's coach, or you think it's just the athlete saying those things.
Takes all of it,
But
dude.
I truly believe all those things are necessary for greatness to occur.
What's your topic, Mike, so we can weigh in on it?
You want to go on it?
Yeah, real quick. Yeah, we got time.
Mine was you hear a lot about connections and building connections and relationships. And maybe it's my lack of ability, but I've realized as I've gotten older, there are certain things that I just can't do. So it's the importance of trying to build relationships. And I had this quote. It was by Jim Collins, the guy. He's the author of Good to Great.
Oh, yeah.
And but anyways, he mentions this. He says, really great relationships are where if you ask each person independently who benefits more from the relationships, they would say, well, I do. And I think that's really powerful. And D, I want to hit on this. There's so many players that come in and out of this gym, right? People that travel 40, 45 minutes. There's a lot of gyms between here and Columbus, right? That you can stop off.
That's
a lot between here and Dublin, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I just wanted to talk about, I don't think any of us could do what we do without really quality people in our lives. But just the art of building connections, and I hate the word connections. I'm going to say it right away. To me, it's more relationships. And I just want to talk about how you guys have navigated some of these partnerships along the way, and how you've made it where, if you think, well, man, I benefit more from this than the other person. So I'll just leave it there. Not the greatest question, but I just want to hear your thoughts on relationships.
Well, I think that's a good point. Is I always say lead with value. Always try to focus on helping people. Mm-hmm. And yeah, even though both people benefit, you want the other person to feel like they benefit more. Mm-hmm. That's going to want them to continue the relationship, right? So I think probably if you ask a lot of the athletes I work with, they would say, well, yeah, of course I benefit more because he's training me for this fight or he helped me get back in shape or whatever. Whereas, I look at it as I benefit from it too, from, my standing in the, strength training community, and I can leverage content and different things like that. So I think, yeah, as long as you focus on helping them. And I think also too, just, I don't even really know a way to explain this. It's kind of like our secret sauce. It's like you want the athletes or the people you work with, people in a relationship, to feel a certain way when they're around you. You want them to feel like they're able to be themselves. Yeah. You want them to feel like you are being genuine and being themselves. I think people athletes love to come here because they walk in and they can feel like they're back at their weight room from high school or in their buddy's basement that they grew up lifting in or whatever. They walk in, we got rap music playing. There's no frills, no like pretending to it. Like this is just raw and this is what it is. So I think a lot of these guys that are drawn to training with me, part of it is, yeah, I'm good at coaching and yeah, I'm fun to work out with or whatever, but there's just an authenticness to the experience. And I think that can carry over to the question about relationships too, is the relationship has to feel authentic. Mm-hmm. So even though I'm trying to lead with value and trying to help you, it can't always feel like, okay, I'm here with an agenda. I'm here to try to help Mike, so then he'll help me. And because that doesn't feel authentic, and people can sense that. Because
we've talked about this, and just maybe you could elaborate. Just the maybe the art of when to ask for those favors. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think when
you gotta know when to ask and
build
what
up some
to ask.
equity.
Right.
Yeah, building some equity, because I think a lot of people think, younger coaches may hear like, I need to make connections. And then it becomes like a one-way street, right? Where you try, I've just noticed this with all of us, you try to add value too, right? Like even though maybe I can't add value to someone who's quote unquote on a higher level to me, yeah, I can. Like I can write them I can send them a book that I really enjoy. Or I always try, even if someone's a millionaire, I try to do certain things. And we've talked about that, like leveraging those moments when you can maybe ask for a favor then.
Yeah, I mean, there would be times where I, go out to lunch after I work out with maybe someone who's a millionaire, and I asked them to lunch, so I pay for lunch.
Yeah.
Well, they got more money than me. Why didn't we split the bill? But I just think like, if I ask them to lunch, I pay for lunch.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. It's not about who has more money or anything like that. But to kind of go back to your point before that, though, is I'll get messages out of nowhere from someone that I've never talked to on Instagram. They'll say, hey, I want to be a strength conditioning coach. I want you to be my mentor. Will you mentor me? And like, yeah, I want to help people, but why should I mentor you? I don't even know who you are.
Right.
There's no relationship.
You have built no relationship with me, no rapport with me whatsoever.
You're such a dick.
but now I'm the bad guy because I don't want to mentor this person. No, it's not that I don't want to help people. But so I guess maybe this is kind of the teaching point for any young coaches or young athletes out there or whatever. You can't just, read somewhere that you need to find a mentor and go out and message Corey G and say, hey, Corey G, be my mentor, because what would, kind of be the push for Corey to want to help you? Maybe if you've showed up here at 4 a.m.
I got a bunch of people I'm already helping
Yeah.
because they're in that position.
Exactly, because they've earned it. The Jay Collins of the world have earned it by showing up.
For sure.
So I think that's just kind of a thing to keep in mind is like, yeah, the relationship's important. You want to focus on helping, but you have to know what to ask, who you can ask, and when you can ask.
Here's a good way I like to, if any of you guys call me, I'm going to answer it within the first 2 rings because the equity's built up, right? That's it. At the end of the day, there's a lot of people that will never get the call answered because it ain't built up. And literally, I'm trying to look at how can I pour into the situation and the people that are around it that they feel that way about me. That if G is calling me, probably not to ask how my day is, he needs something, I'm gonna get to him. And so, you can kind of sense how that is. And so if somebody's metaphorically like dodging you and not, about it, you should know that. And maybe you should look at why is that happening? You know what I'm saying? So I think like Nipsey said something amazing about life's not about what you're taking from it. It's about what you pour into it. And then when I do need to maybe ask that question or that take, it's a 100% yes right now, G, if you need it.
Isn't that funny when people will ask like, "Hey, G, like Arnold, can
Yeah.
can you hook me up? Just give me
Yeah, let me work my whole life so then I can use your ass.
Yeah,
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, right,
You know what I mean?
right.
But I look at it like really like this, and I've even said this to people that have burned the bridge, or I will not answer your phone call again. This is how I operate.
Yeah.
Like there's just a way that things work, and if it's take, and then you're coming for that last take after I'm finally done, bro, you're out, and then you never back in.
Yeah.
I have a hard cut because of my situation is a little bit different than some of your guys's, and so like it is business and it is sports still, but like those lines they operate real similar for me in a lot of ways. And if I'm making decisions like that, I'm confident. And look, and I might be putting so-called equity into a situation, and I might never get it back. But I also realized something that Gary Vee said a long time ago. You really can't give with expectation.
That's right.
It's like I'm not giving you a present because I want a present. I'm giving you a present because I wanted to give you a present. If you end up doing something for me, that's just icing on the cake. I never expect anything. I think maybe I used to do it that way because I didn't really understand that. But I felt like if I just kept giving to the world, whether it's content, whether it's stuff, whether it's products, whether it's the consistent stuff, whatever I'm doing, I'm going to get what I need. I mean, it's already shown itself that way over and over again. So I just think I kind of changed that whole, kind of feeling a long time ago, and it just keeps working out. So
No doubt.
I just keep executing.
How about you, Chad? Just from a spot now where you're kind of on the come up, right? So how do you navigate these things?
Yeah, so this is a fun one for me to answer because like I've made it known, like we've talked on the podcast, like what we want to be great at, and I said I want to be an elite connector, and I look at those connections and relationships a little bit differently. Like, Corey's talking about like if we called him, he would answer our call, but I started coming to Old School to train with Corey in 2015. When I wanted Corey to be my mentor, I didn't reach out on Twitter. I went to the Arnold to see him and waited until nobody was around and then just said, hey, my name's Tyler Treadway. This is who I am. I hope you have a great day. See you later. He doesn't know me from Adam. And then I just keep doing that. And then I start showing up to the gym once I graduated college. And then I started coming to the gym in 2015, but I didn't start working with Corey until 2021. So that's 6 years of
like actually working business with us. Yeah.
Right. And I saw a great quote on this the other day, and it said, quit trying to build connections and start building friendships. And that's one of the things that I think is going to be the biggest key in connecting with people. Like, yeah, you can use different words like connections, networking, but those are all bullshit. Like, build friendships with people, because then they want to work with you, and it's a two-way street instead of, like Dustin said, just providing value. So if I'm a friend with somebody, then we want to work together and do certain things together. And I was having a conversation with one of my great friends, Ben. He's a coach, just got the job at Transy. And he was like, I don't even remember really how we met, but I remember, like, I was coming to town for something, and I stayed at your house. And I was like, but you wouldn't do that. Like, nobody's going to ever ask Corey to stay at his house, but it was like, because it was a friendship. It wasn't just a connection.
Yeah.
And, you know, as I'm on this journey trying to come up in the coaching and everything like that, like, when I connect with somebody, I never want them to feel like they're being used.
That's right.
I want them to feel like it's a genuine friendship.
I think people can feel it anyway.
Yeah.
I've been stiff arming people out here forever.
Yeah.
There's
I
people.
think people will ask too much of you, for sure.
There's people in the community, I could read it on them in 5 seconds when I moved here. I've been stiff arming for years, and I still stiff arm them because I can tell it's not genuine. Real ones can see it, especially guys that have been doing business as long as I have.
Because
Some people can fool me for a short period of time, but then they'll usually get weeded out.
Yeah, because just to wrap
it up.
I just think you need mentors. I think that can accelerate your learning, your growth,
No
et cetera.
question.
But you have to be strategic on how you operate in that space.
Yeah. The book idea was great.
Right.
You don't know a guy from Adam, but he sends you a book because he heard this podcast, and then you're like, who's that again? But then it's like, that's the first time they came across your desk, right? There's a strategy.
And
just
nothing,
like
and
Treadway.
nothing, and like you said, though, nothing in return. Like I don't say like, hey, can I come? You know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just,
Can I come learn your whole business plan tomorrow?
Yeah, that's it. I try to just gradually like sprinkle things in and say, hey, if there's ever an I've done it too. Hey, if there's ever an opportunity, like just keep me in mind. You know what I mean? Just I'm on your radar. I don't want anything. But I think we need those people in our lives, and we've all benefited from mentors
For sure.
But you can't ask someone. You can't start on step 9 when someone's worked for 30 years in something and say, hey, give it all to me, right? Like there's a level of respect for people.
I need some floor play.
That's it.
We'll wrap it up with that. Zing! All right, Coaches Clinic Podcast. I'm your boy Corey G, Mike Deegan, Tyler Treadway, Dustin Myers, brought to you by MaxEverMuscle.com. We are out.